are shows with psychics,
And there are shows with doctors.
but there's no show like The Psychic and the Doc.
Your practical paranormal power unleashed.
This show synthesizes the talents of world-class medium Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, psychic explorer,
And street smart spiritualist, behavioral psychologist, Dr. Pat Basile. All subjects are on the table and no topic is taboo. Inspiration, insight.
action, and fun as Mark Anthony connects callers with loved ones in spirit.
In tandem with Dr. Pat's fresh, no-nonsense, street smart, intuitive insights. And she is hilarious.
Extraordinary problems
Require extraordinary solutions, which may come from this side
or the other side. This is The Psychic
and the Doc. And it starts now. To The Psychic and the Doc. I'm Mark Anthony, JD, Psychic Explorer, and I'm here with my incredible co-host, the world-renowned behavioral psychologist, the host of the long-running, award-winning The Dr. Pat Show, and that's Dr. Pat Basile. And we're going to be taking your calls, but we have a very special guest tonight, my friend, my colleague, Lisa Bonnice. And she is an award-winning writer. She's a program host with the Shift Network, and that's where I met Lisa through my work with the Shift Network. And she was the moderator, facilitator of several events that I conducted with Shift Network. And the cool thing about Lisa is she used to be a stand-up comedian, and she received 2 Excellence Awards from MSNBC.com during her tenure there as a news writer and associate producer. She also traveled the country as a stand-up comedian, working with the likes of Jeff Foxworthy, Tim Allen, and Steve Harvey. Wow, that was incredible. And her true crime novel, Fear of Our Father, was featured on the Investigation Discovery Network, an Emmy-nominated BBC documentary, and on a court TV documentary, and is now a Lifetime TV movie called Monster in the Family, the Stacey Kananen story. Her latest book, though, is Castlegate, and I've read it. I absolutely love it. It's simply amazing, and we're honored to welcome Lisa Bonnice to The Psychic and the Doc. Welcome aboard, Lisa. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this. We booked this a long time ago, and I haven't. I've been looking so forward to it, just because you guys are so fun, and it's always so fun to talk with Mark. We always have the greatest conversations.
We really do. And, you know, I've got 2 very funny ladies here. All right, Dr. Pat is hilarious. Lisa obviously is hilarious as a stand-up comedian. And I'm going to put this out to both of you. People think that when you're a comedian, it's all laughs and ha-ha. But there's another side to being funny, to being a comedian. And dare I say, I call it the dark edge. Okay. So, Lisa, what's your thoughts about that? Then I want to hear what Dr. Pat has to say.
You know, there's really not a whole lot funny about being a comic, other than when you're on stage or hanging out with other comics. But the life itself, it's grueling. There's the kind of travel that wears you down. And I haven't done it in many years. And one of the reasons I quit is because it was really hard for a woman in comedy back in those days. I mean, now you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a female comic, and that's wonderful. But back then, it was a lot harder for women to make it in the business. So yeah, I didn't like that part of it much.
Yeah.
Dr. Pat, do you find that your sense of humor, and I love your sense of humor because it's so off the wall, but do you find, and you know, I know I'm funny. People always tell me I'm funny, and it's like, it doesn't always stem from ha-ha, everything has been easy. And I know that you've had a very difficult life in your formative years. What do you attribute your comedic and humorous ability to?
Well, think about it. We've talked about this before. You got 1 or 2 choices. Like, this is what I love about the world. Everybody thinks they got a lot of choices. I'm like, they got one or two. You got basically one or two. You could tell I live in a very narrow frame of mind some days. Today's one of them because all my energy went into building this game today. But when you think about, okay, what's the life path? You're born into this world. Your mom's an addict. She's an alcoholic. You're born an addict alcoholic. They're crying. So the way they soothe you is they give you drugs and alcohol. So you grow up, you're age 6, 7, you're really different. They give you boxing gloves. You move on. Mom commits suicide at age 6. Then by the time you know it, dad remarries his secretary. And at 17, you're homeless on the street, digging hot dogs. How could you not make fun of that? You have to be able to get to the place when you tell the hot dog story about how you got the hot dog cart job, or how the white people showed up that I thought were ghosts. They were the Hare Krishna people. I thought they were like 3 ghosts, right? I'm sitting on a curb in Manhattan. And these 3 people and they're banging tambourine. I thought, man, I died. I'm in heaven. But you have to have a little humor in life. But when I tell the story, I honor my mom and her journey. I talk about what that was. But I really do see, I really do see life through the duality of that lens. And I think, Lisa, you must have to do that too, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't have anything like your upbringing, but I do have the same attitude where if you can't laugh about some of these things, your only option is to cry. So you almost have to see the humor. And in fact, sometimes it gets me into trouble where, I just am sort of automatically like that, where if something happens, where's the joke? Where's the joke? And sometimes people get really either hurt or offended by that. But I don't know, is it a coping mechanism? I'm not sure, but I'm right there with you. You got to laugh or you're going to cry.
I think it is coping, but it's an interesting coping because if you're me, you use drugs and alcohol for the first part of your life. And so that's a coping mechanism. So if I had to choose a coping mechanism, I'd rather talk about on a show, not this one, but I'd rather really have a headline show that says something like, how does falling down the stairs at a Catholic church get you expelled by the bishop from the Catholic Church? And so those are the kinds of things when you're a kid, they're scary. But when you get older and you step back, I mean, I shared a story the other day. It was fascinating because I talked about how I went to church in confession. And, I grew up in New York, in the Bronx. So I'm around, my friends are Jewish, blah, 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 all that. So I go to Catholic church and I'm like, wait a minute. Why did you change the rules on eating meat on Friday? So I go into church and I'm in there and I had everything listed for all the times I had to do Hail Marys and Our Fathers. And I said to the priest, bless me, Father, forever. I said, no, I want my Hail Marys and Our Fathers back. You have to give them back to me. But this is a very innocent request as a child, you see, because that's really me. It's an innocent request because I didn't understand it. And what I learned early is rules of the game change. See, now that's the not so funny side of the story, right, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People always say, when I give presentations, oh, you're so funny. And come on, I was of Italian descent, raised in a neighborhood where everyone was blonde hair and blue-eyed and Aryan master race looking. I was Catholic and I saw dead people. Okay. If I didn't have a sense of humor, I never would have made it out of my childhood. And that's how I deal with stress. Instead of freaking out, I make a joke about it to relieve that stress. And um, Lisa, your book Castlegate, I know it starts in 1924. Is that correct?
The first chapters are in 1921, I believe.
21? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I knew
the
that
big event happens in 1924. Yeah.
1924. Okay. And then we're going to talk in a moment about ancestral healing, but let's start there. For those, for the listeners who've never heard of Castlegate, what
Mm.
happened? What was it? What was that event that led Lisa Bonnice on this amazing journey?
Right. Okay. Well, on March 8th, 1924, the Castlegate mine in Utah exploded. It was actually a series of two explosions and then a cave in at the entrance, which blocked both anyone from escaping and rescue crews from entering. And this was one of the worst industrial disasters in US history. And 171 miners were killed instantly, including three of my Scottish ancestors. And the town, of course, was shattered. It was a mining town. That's what you do.
Right.
So families lost not only their husbands and sons and fathers, but the only source of income that many of the households had. So
Mm.
yeah, so that's where that's what happened that day. And then of course, there's the aftermath of the recovery, the search and rescue, what happens to the families. The whole story was just, it's such a powerful story and such an example of the human condition of, horrific disasters, but then people coming together and, helping out and lifting each other up. It was just such an amazing story. And I'm really amazed that
Wow.
my ancestors were a part of it.
Wow.
Wow.
And big part of what you do with the Shift Network, but also with this particular book involves ancestral healing. So, I mean, my grandmother was kidnapped by the Black Hand when she was 4 years old and held for ransom, and finally was returned. It's a whole involved story. Okay. And I can see what happened. The trauma that happened to my grandmother was inflicted on her children, which was inflicted on my generation. And so ancestral healing is an important part of recovery. How did what happened at Castlegate affect your family and lead to you writing this book?
Oh, I don't think I could tell that whole thing in just this small amount of time. I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try. I didn't really discover this story until maybe 10, 15 years ago, but I still didn't realize that there was such a thing as ancestral trauma, generational trauma, whatever you want to call it, until my mom was in her elder years and she started getting dementia and things started getting really weird. But I always knew that she was estranged from her father. And I never really knew why. She wouldn't talk about him. But the older she got and the more the dementia was sort of, eating away at her personality, the more I was able to see, okay, well, these are some clues that there's more to it than her just being mad at her dad. And when I discovered this story and that her dad, my grandpa, he was 18 at the time of the accident, and he was not in the mine, obviously, or I wouldn't be here today. He wasn't there that day because he was laid off. The work was slow. So men without families or without seniority were just laid off that day. So he had just come over from Scotland. So he just lost his homeland, his family back home, and he was in this new place in the United States in Utah, which is completely different from Scotland. And
Yeah.
then within like about a year or so, his mother died of cancer. She was only 38, 39 years old. And then about 6 months later, his father, his uncle, and his cousin were all killed in the mine. So he and his sisters are now orphaned. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was an 18-year-old and I had that much loss in such a short period, and it's dramatic loss, I would shut it down. I'm not going to feel anything ever again. So I can understand why, as an adult getting married, having children, how he just closed it off. He was able to abandon his children. He and his wife, my grandma, got divorced, and he just abandoned the family. He was one of those dads. And so once I learned why he did what he did, I was able to understand in a way that my mom never could. She held a grudge until the day she died. And so, in addition to, just being able to understand my mom at that point, I was able to also understand, okay, I'm pretty shut down myself. I'm friendly and blah blah blah, but when it comes to really allowing myself to feel anything, it ain't happening. Or at least it wasn't until and maybe that's why I was able to be a comic. I didn't take anything
That is
seriously.
exactly, and I know I can see Dr. Pat's ready to
Yeah.
chime in, but
Yeah.
I'm
No,
now that
that's right.
yeah, I'm seeing where the need for comic relief
Mhm.
came in. Robin Williams said people don't fake um, being depressed; they fake being okay. And your grandfather, that was an unspeakable trauma, and then he has children, okay, which on paper probably should not have had children, but back then everybody had children, and that dysfunction. And I see that in my own family with my grandmother having been kidnapped. She was only 4 years old, okay, and they held her for a year, and
Oh,
and her yeah, and her phobias, her fear of strangers, her obsession with cleanliness. I could see how that permeated through, and I'm seeing the same thing with you. And then Dr. Pat, you were in the position of Lisa's grandfather. You were the one on the front lines. What is your take on what Lisa's family went through and the importance of ancestral healing?
Well, one of the things I want to congratulate you and thank you for is I'm what you call learning different. So I have this incredible gift that I see now. So when I read something, I don't read a word. So I'm reading your book and I see the pictures. Okay, so there's a big long name for it. Won't go into it. But when I was young, it was a curse. Now that I'm older, I can create games because of that brain. But as I was reading the book, I was so compelled with how I felt there. Right. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, even with you take the teacup, I'll take the pot. I mean, there's just certain things in the book that I could see happen, the dialogue, the personalities of the people. And the reason I'm bringing it up, Lisa, is because when you have that kind of gift and talent to tell this type of story, you have to really bring it to people at an emotional and yet a mental level. And by doing that, all of us that read it became part of the story. Does that make sense?
it does. It does. And in fact, this is where my ancestors actually they helped me tell the story,
That's
because as I was writing it, I'm a writer, I put words down, blah blah blah, but if I was putting down something that didn't ring true to them, they let me know. They would say that's wrong. And so I created astrology reports so I could sort of tap into their personalities, just to develop characters, just a writer's tool. But when I was starting to write scenes with Helen in particular, she was my great grandmother, the one who
mm-hmm.
died when she was in her 30s. I had created her astrology profile based on the birth date on her death certificate, because at the time that's all I had. But when I was looking at the report to write a scene with her, I kept hearing, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm like, what? So I went to the Scotland's People website, which is the official Scottish government, and I pulled up her birth record, and the date on her death certificate was wrong. It was off by
Wow.
like a year and a week. So her
Wow.
personality in the astrology report was wrong. So they chimed in. I promise you, they did. They told me how it happened.
Yeah, I remember when you were writing this book, you had an heirloom, and I did a short reading for you, and it gave you some information, the particular topic you were working on. And that's why the objects that we inherit, it may be a cup. It could be a piece of jewelry. I mean, jewelry is very important, that comes down through the family. But these particular objects are very important, and they establish a link between us and the past. I mean, there's certain things that I have. I've got this one glass object That belonged, there you go. That was it. Yeah. That belonged to my great grandmother, Giovanna, and she was the mother of the grandmother of my grandmother who had been kidnapped. And Giovanna was well known as a psychic medium in the Italian American community of North Jersey. And it's just cool realizing Giovanna held this, and it brings us a step closer. I remember when I was at Oxford and I went to the Ashmolean Museum, they actually had a jewel that Alfred the Great possessed. Now, obviously, they didn't let us touch it, but I was like looking at it right up close, thinking, Alfred the Great. I mean, this is well over, it's like 12, 1300 years ago, held that object. It's just amazing.
Hmm.
Amazing.
You know,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I was struck by, and there's a scene that I won't repeat here, but boy, it reminded me of a moment in my own childhood, the laboratory scene. But what I was struck by was Nellie and Helen. I was really struck by that relationship. It reminded me of myself and my best friend Linda. And but that scene in the book, and I think it's midway, but that whole thing, the conversation about the laboratory and do you have a penny? And you know what I'm talking about here, Lisa, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, dang, that happened to me. And so part of this is understanding the depth of the characters in the past lives and the journey. But
Yeah.
another part of this is so relatable,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Dr. Pat, I couldn't agree more. When I was reading the manuscript, first off, Lisa, you're a great writer. All right, you're right there with your characters. I was right there, and then they start dying, and it's like, oh my God, because and that see, it's like when I write, if I can't feel it, my readers can, and obviously you take the same approach. If you can't feel it, and this was very personal to you, and even though you didn't know a lot of these people. You knew of them, you developed that bond with them. And that's what a successful writer has to do is you have to feel it and then create this incredible narrative. And so for all the listeners, Castlegate, if you want an extremely engaging, gripping story that you're going to relate to these people and learn things that not just about Lisa and her family, but it'll start causing your own inner reflection. Let's face it, we all have ancestral trauma. I mean, who has a family that hasn't suffered loss or you had some, crazy or diabolical or outlandish relative in it, or that somebody was horribly victimized? I mean, I've dealt with so many friends. I had Shirley Bolstock. She was one of our guests the first year we did the psychic and the doc, and she has since passed from cancer. But Shirley's parents were held in a concentration camp. They were a Jewish, and Shirley's childhood was an absolute nightmare. Okay. And it is important for us because in our parents' generation, don't, the Italians, don't to talk about this, don't to talk about the kidnapping, don't to that. Yeah. Dr.
You
Pat,
got to be kidding me.
as a
My
behavioral psychologist, does
but this
denial
is
work?
it. No, this is the way they operated. Do you know it took right before my uncle Al died, right? The last bacilli to sit down and tell me. I said to him, Uncle Al, I get all these emails from Brazil. I like these people are sending me emails and they're asking me like in the language I don't understand of my family. And I said, why do we have all these people in South America? And then like 5 words in Italian and some curse words and something. I said, this is the internet now. You can't hide. Okay. I said, it says Pop Pop, who you tell me looked different, was a farmer in Brazil. So he's not Italian. But that's the way they lived. That's the way they lived. And the result of that conversation is him, you don't know anything about the family. You don't know nothing. This is if you knew, we couldn't tell you kids. Your father was no with the finger, the whole thing. That served that generation, I think, but it doesn't serve us.
Right.
Right, right. Yeah, I am convinced that one of the main reasons that we as a global community are in the crazy position we're in is because of generations of all this built up. I don't want to use the word karma because that has this crime and punishment kind of connotation to it, but just the built up cause and effect, and never really examining what made us who we are, and now we're moving forward and bringing that crap forward to the next generation after the next after the next, and now we're at a point where we're going to blow ourselves up if we don't start looking at, you know, what they did and doing something about it, making reparations, if nothing else, in our own hearts.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
only one show I've ever done. I'm coming up on 10,000 interviews in 23 years. And there was only one show that I could think about that I did where I said to the producer, get this guy off, get him off now. And so Benny looked at me funny. I said, you got to get him off. I don't want no break. I want him gone. Hit the button, disconnect him. And he looked at me and he said, I understand why you did that. It was somebody that came on the phone and wanted to absolutely debate and have everybody believe the Holocaust didn't exist. And I took about 10 minutes of that. It took me, sometimes I'm a little slow. It took me about 10 minutes to realize I don't even know what to ask this guy. I mean, it's like, what planet? But you see, this is part of what we've learned from our childhood. You see, I learned great discernment, right? How to try to figure out what's real, what's not. You know, you telling this book and, you know, both of us being a little funny at times about things. I don't think I'd be funny if I didn't go through that. Do you think you would?
I really doubt it. I really, really doubt it. I think, as we were talking about earlier, it's a coping mechanism. It's a reflex. It's a way to make sense of the insane.
I love it. Now, Mark, we got a bunch of
Yes.
callers here. Are we ready
Yes.
to get Lisa in the pipeline?
We are, but one thing I wanted to ask Lisa is in your book, there's a lot of really strong feminine characters because
Oh
think about
gosh,
it.
yeah.
All the men were killed except for your grandfather, basically. And how did women's lives and voices shape the story? And I love asking this because here I am with two very strong feminine energies, and I mean that in a positive way. See, I was of a generation where I used to hear a lot of my male colleagues say, "Oh, I don't like working with women," but I grew up in a time where I had female professors in college and in law school. As an attorney, I had when I started out, I had female supervisors, and I've always worked with women attorneys. I've never had an issue with that, but some people did, and I remember the struggle for female law students because when I was going to law school, only about a quarter to a third of the class was female. Now I understand in law schools, it's more like it's almost 60% of the students are women. You know, so the balance of power, gender, whatever has shifted. So how does the strong feminine energy play a part in this story?
Let me jump in for a minute and really be a pain in the about this. Gloria Steinem said to me once, Pat, we stand on the shoulders of all of that have come before. And I've interviewed Gloria, and as I was at corporate, I had a corporate job. You can tell, right? Little corporate look. Um, when I was in HR, we brought her in. Linda was instrumental. Now I'm sitting with feeling incompetent in supporting women right now. 500,000 understated have left the workforce, and 300,000 are women of color that have been fired. So I love that we had to grow up. And what would you say, Lisa? Like carve the pathway, more like a jackhammer. And by the way, I have a term for you now. From now on, when you want to talk about that stuff, see, I created crust busting. See, it's crust. We're carrying crust. We're taking it from generations, family, centuries. But this thing right now, it's hard for me to even answer that question because I'm confused. Lisa, I don't know. What do you think?
We're in a really weird place right now. I mean, yeah, when I was growing up, I mean, I grew up in a very misogynist, chauvinistic household, and born in the '60s, yada yada, where you know, ugh, I don't even want to go there. It was not pleasant. And now we're seeing an almost bigger backlash against women. I mean, I don't want to get political, but I mean, really,
No.
two women have run for president. Neither of them have won. I'm sure it's just because they were women, because they're very qualified people. But again, that's not where I wanted to go with this. I know that in answer to Mark's question, though, like back then, I if I lived back then in the personality I have now, I would have been beat down. I mean, they had no legal or economic power. They had, like, when a woman would arrive on, crossing the ocean on one of these ships, if they were unaccompanied by a man, they weren't allowed to leave the ship unless they had to go. They went to this travelers aid organization to make sure that they were okay and they were able to travel on their own. It was, I mean, the sexism that we see nowadays it's a different kind of sexism. I think the thing that got to me the most back in that story was, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, but my great aunt Jean, who was 20 when this disaster happened, she was running the household, and when they became orphaned, she was already the mother of the smaller children, but they wouldn't let her take care of the little kids anymore because they saw her as a sensible little girl. She'd already been in charge of the house, and yet because she was a female, they took away her family. So yeah, I don't know if we've really come all that far, to tell you the truth.
I think we have. I think we have, though, and obviously I'm a male, but I mean back then women couldn't even vote, or they had just attained the right to vote. But like you said, we've had two women run for president. Okay, we have women senators, we have women
Three. We had
cabinet members.
three women run, didn't we?
Yeah,
Or was that the
Shirley Chisholm ran way
yeah.
back when. And also, we have women CEOs. It is changing. Nikola Tesla said over 100 years ago that he foresaw women becoming the dominant gender within the next century plus. And I'm okay with that because my gender has not exactly done a very good job. Because even though we've had women rulers like Cleopatra, Elizabeth I, Golda Meir, Indira Gandhi, I mean, these women would resort to military options because they were leaders. But I think moms would think twice about sending their children to war to die. Okay. And when you look at when COVID happened, the countries with female presidents and prime ministers fared better because they were actually listening to the doctors and the scientists and the medical community, as opposed to, other factors. So I think we are in a transitionary period. Women doctors, women scientists, women astronauts, women politicians. It's only a matter of time before we have a woman president. And honestly, I look forward to that day.
Well, I want to give you an optimistic note. I have to, though, because I think we're live in the United States. And when I step back from that, I'm looking at what happened in Japan just here recently.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, talk about a
oh,
male-dominated culture, and
Takachi.
konnichiwa to all of our
Yeah,
Japanese
Takachi.
listeners. But yeah,
And so it's hopeful for me. But here's the question, and I hope we get to talk to it. I know we got to go to the phones. I don't know. I grew up in a generation where if somebody sneezed and we didn't like the sneeze, we were out, got a sign, and we were walking around with the sign. If we didn't like that war, we were like all over the place. Gay rights, you're going to beat gay people. Well, here's what we're going to do. You know, Stonewall. I was at Stonewall. So I lived in that generation. And so my friends tell me, get over it. That's not this generation. And I say to myself, okay, I'll adapt. Please show me a way to help us, right? Because you're right. It's not then, But do we need then to help us now? I don't know.
Well,
Go ahead, Lisa.
yeah, well, not to just keep banging the same drum, but that's actually part of my now connection with these ancestors who experienced, life that was so much harder than mine. I can feel them cheering me on.
Yeah.
Where, I didn't really have that before I began working with them. And I never really claimed to have any kind of mediumship abilities, but working with them, I can do it for myself. I can't do readings for other people, but for myself, absolutely, they come through and they don't want just me to succeed. They want us to succeed. And all of our ancestors want us to, well, maybe not the ones who are still, wounded. They're still freshly dead and maybe a little, still a little messed up. But those who have, gone through their own healing process, they want us to succeed and they want to come through and they want to guide us and, help us. So I think that really that's the best thing that any of us who feel helpless can do.
That's a great point. It's great. And so much strength out of your book. I know we're talking about a little, what's an old school term? Downtrodden. That's an old school term, right? Does anybody even say that? That's like oopsie daisy. Right? It's like the same term. But even though we are, I see a spark. I do see a spark. And when I saw, not to get political, I just want to talk about two people though, because two are the most unlikely people to tour, Bernie Sanders and AOC. When I saw that tag team, and I just thought, we can communicate. See, it doesn't matter. And I'm from that district. I grew up in PS14. I grew up in the Bronx. And so we have to look for those things that help us rise up. See, and the strength of the people in your book, that's what it does. Even though there's such a great backstory and so much involved in it, it's these moments, this slice in time that allows us to hold on to a thought or an idea that will help carve our own pathway and journey. And that's so important in the work you do, in the book you do, and all of that. And that's why this conversation is so important today. It's to really tell people, don't give up.
Don't give up. That's good. Lisa, where do we find your book? For the
Exactly.
people who are
Thank
listening, how
you.
they get, yeah, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it's available wherever books are sold. However, I also just produced the audiobook. So you can get that at castlegatebook.com. And of course, the paperback and hardcover are available as well. But the audiobook is so amazing. I hired a Scottish actress to do all the narration because there's no way I would embarrass myself if I tried to do all the accents in this book. Her name is Eleanor Morton. And if anybody's on YouTube or TikTok, you might have seen her. She went viral with these videos, as Craig the Tour Guide. So she's a comedian as well. That's actually what she does for a living, but she's an actress as well. So she narrated Castlegate. It's available at castlegatebook.com or on Spotify or any of the places that you get your audiobooks. So yeah, thanks for asking, Mark.
I know we normally go to a break, but what do you say do you want to go right to the phone, Soccer Pat?
Do it. Do the
All right.
phones. I worked for the phone company. We got to do the phones. Jessica, who do we have?
Sure, absolutely. Let's go to Maria from New Jersey. Maria, you are live.
Hey, Maria. Hey, good. What part of Jersey are you from?
Interesting. I'm from Union County in Hillside.
Nice. So, what do you think about so far, and how can we help you?
Interesting conversation. So I've been following Mark Anthony. I don't know, different podcasts, very interesting. I actually picked up his book, so I'm reading it. And my son passed away this year, so it's been difficult. And the more I read and more educated I become, the awareness. I've always been spiritual, but I'm feeling that he's more like my teacher now, which is in contrast to he was my son. And and that we have definitely a soul contract together. And I was wondering if you guys have
So
picked
Maria,
up
Maria,
anything.
did you, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, and please, on behalf of all of
Yes.
us here at Transformation and Lisa, please accept our deepest sympathies on the
Yeah.
passing of your son. And did you say that your sister is also in spirit?
No, no, no. Just my son passed away this year. No, not my sister. Sorry. Um,
Okay, because I thought you referenced your sister, because I
yeah.
wasn't picking up on a female spirit, but I am picking up on a male spirit coming through. And this may be your son, okay? Because sometimes the person you want to hear from the most is not the first one to come through. Could be another male connected to you, but a male spirit's coming in. I'm getting a lot of pain at the bottom of my rib cage on both sides, and I'm getting this painful sensation in my abdominal region, stomach, GI tract. Um, I'm getting something that was affecting his mental focus and clarity prior to passing, and I feel extremely thirsty. So there's a sense of dehydration that could indicate that he may not have been eating or drinking much prior to passing. But what's going on, Maria, is this is hitting me very, or rather, came upon him very quickly. I feel this dehydration, this impact sensation, which means that this could have been an abrupt or unexpected passing, and I'm getting this tension, tightness in his abdominal region, whole GI tract, and lower back as well. Does any of this make sense related to his passing?
100%. It was totally unexpected. He collapsed and he never regained consciousness, and the EMT people, medics, were not able to revive him.
Okay, so we got
Um,
your son here, and hold on. I'm not being flippant when I say this, and I realize Halloween was what, a couple weeks ago, but he keeps giving me candy corn. Now, candy corn is, unless there's some particular significance to that particular type of candy, usually means something right around Halloween, but I extend it to the entire Scorpio timeframe because, of course, Halloween falls within Scorpio, which is roughly between October 20th and November 20th, October 20, November 20, give or take a day or a couple days or so on either end. He could be referencing a significant birth, death, anniversary, or event connected to him, connected to you, or someone else close to you within Scorpio. Does that make sense to you in any way?
um, no, not really. Um,
He's talking
I'll
about
think on it.
around, go ahead, go ahead. He's talking about around November 3rd, 4th, November 3rd, 4th. And this could be something that may have happened to you just 2 weeks ago.
Um, no,
All right. Be
November
careful
3rd or
with
4th. Okay.
be careful with no, 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 because when you do that, it's like you're slamming the door in their face, they back off. So just say you're not sure just yet. But there is something. Just out of
Um,
curiosity, what was with your son in Halloween?
um, he loved Halloween as a child. He dressed up into garish costumes. He would love that, and he every year it was a big deal um, to dress
Okay,
up.
yeah,
Um,
that could be what he's getting at because when they give me what initially seems to be trivial pieces of information, it's how he's building a rapport with me. Okay? And wow, he keeps talking about diabetes, 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 diabetes. Does diabetes run in your family? Is it affecting you? Could it possibly have been affecting him? But I keep hearing diabetes, diabetes.
my father passed away. He had diabetes, and he was very close to my dad. He's in spirit, my father.
Okay, so that indicates that your son is there with your father because there's the diabetes connection. Also, oh, your son's saying a complimentary thing to you. He said he knows that you've really been stuck, but you have done a beautiful job emerging and pulling yourself up. And obviously, a mother who loses a child is devastated. We get that. But he keeps saying you're doing such a good job lifting yourself up. And he said that you have always had faith, but you have reconnected with your faith in an incredibly beautiful way. And I keep seeing an image, and I know your name is Maria, which is Latin for Mary, but he keeps showing me an image of Mary, the mother of Jesus, which could also relate to the month of May because May is dedicated to Mary, the mother of Jesus. But he keeps showing me this beautiful image of Mary, the mother of Jesus. Does that make sense to you in any way?
100%. Since his passing, I said it's so sad because it seems I've been, like I've always been spiritual, but his passing has propelled me to a higher level of depth and understanding that I may not have ever reached in this short period. And May, he was born in May.
There we go.
And that's a very significant, he was born around Mother's Day. That's another
Ah,
significant connection. He's around,
and
and
yes, and go on, go on.
no, so Mother's Day and his birthday are always connected.
Yeah, and the super mom, if you will, is Mary, the mother of Jesus, who also lost her son. Okay. And so this is why he is giving me this image and he's being extremely complimentary to you. Dr. Pat, what's your take?
So my take real quick, and I want to go to Lisa, is that November is 11. So even before that happened and that came through, my message to you was you're on a new paradigm and narrative for your spiritual journey because 11 is that number. It's one of the most powerful master numbers. How do I know it? It's my
I
birthday
keep
number.
seeing,
And yeah, a million people have told me that. So, but you see, that's what it is. But it amplifies the energy. You know, it takes a number
hmm
one and it amplifies it. And part of the message I think for you is that now, from where I sit, a year is not that long. So, are you taking good care of yourself?
um, in some ways, yes. In some ways, I'm kind of keeping myself busy at times, other focused, other some days are good, some days are not good. That's just
Okay.
the way it is. But I do see 11 everywhere. Um, unlikely. I did see his name, his initials etched in glass. Um, while driving, I just turned my head, and there it was. I looked down on the ground, and I see his initials again. Um, you know, have there. Yeah, I see his name. His name was Andrew everywhere.
And what was his,
So
what are
I
his
know
initials? Can you tell me the initials? Like A what?
AJL,
Okay.
AJL.
So A is, what is A in the alphabet? It's the first letter.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to turn you over to Lisa so Lisa can chat with you. But my message to you is spending more time spiritually sounds like it's good for you, but I will tell you this from where I sit. Try to find a way to find these moments and times in life for you to experience, even if it's a nanosecond of joy. Lisa?
Well, what's coming to mind here is after all the years I've worked with the Shift Network, the most common theme that I've heard with stories like this is that you two had a soul contract that, and I know this is so hard to hear when you're still in your human suit and somebody you loved is gone, to think that you guys agreed to do this together. But when you were saying that, uh, that this has helped you to connect, to become much more deeply aligned with Mary, etc. Perhaps this is the purpose. And I feel like if you were to communicate with him directly, he's waiting to talk to you directly.
Great.
I do
Thank you
feel
so
that
much.
we have
Yeah.
full contact. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you, thank you so much. I'm going to say this to you because this is what I know. Sometimes we get to one call, sometimes we get to more than one. But I want you to know that your vulnerability and your heart and your sharing and the way that you've came and the courage it takes to do a call like this and the excellence of Mark and Lisa as well. What's happened is you have touched the hearts of thousands of people hearing you today. And I wanted to personally thank you for that, because what you've done is not easy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank you. Well, Mark, hour's gone. Here we go. Let's have some last words. Lisa,
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa. How do we find Castlegate again?
and you,
All right.
how do we find you?
Well, my website is lisabonnice.com, Bonnice, and castlegatebook.com is where you find all the information you need. There's photos of the people in the book. There's maps. There's resources. If you read Castlegate and you want to know more, that's where you go to find out, castlegatebook.com.
Fantastic.
And Mark, for you too. Why don't you give people a quick update on what you're up to?
Super. I've got a online spirit communication light circle limited to 6 people on December 12th. If you go to my website, which is afterlifefrequency.com, just like my latest book, afterlifefrequency.com, I invite all of you to sign up for the newsletter, go to the calendar events, find out what's going on. And Dr. Pat and I will be back next Thursday. We'll be taking your calls. Lisa, it's so great to work with you again. I look forward to you returning to the show. And I know Castlegate I know it's selling really well. And I want to see it become a big success. And everyone out there, get Castlegate. It's the ideal Christmas gift for anyone who likes a great spiritual adventure and archaeological adventure.
And it's going to remind you of your childhood, ladies. Just saying. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mark. Thanks to the best audience on the planet. I want to thank you. And for us, please take a look at the renewed thetransformationnetwork.com. So much more to come for all of you. We'll see y'all next time. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into The Psychic and the Doc with Mark Anthony and me, Dr. Pat Basile, right here on transformationtalkradio.com. Hey, look, come back next week so we can explore with you more of life's many challenges and learn from fascinating guests. And you know what? Even Mark and me. We'll connect you and discover insights from people in this life and from the afterlife. Extraordinary problems? Yeah, they do. They require extraordinary solutions. But step into the world of possibilities with us on The Psychic and the Doc. That's every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here on transformationtalkradio.com. That's transformationtalkradio.com. And don't forget, we're also live face-to-face on facebook.com, Transformation Talk Radio.